Welcome, nerds, to this week's episode of The News. The godfather of Cyberpunk is finally getting his due in the TV section. We have a Dune video game that hails from the multiverse. We're going to get into that, as well as Willy Wonka is the next franchise to get the horror treatment, apparently. And only kind of. Things off at the music section. Avenged Sevenfold just might have changed the way you go to concerts forever. We'll talk about that in the regular news section. We also have the Aftershock Festival has announced their lineup for this year, and there are some names on there that are a little surprising, though they probably shouldn't be. And Slaughter to Prevail has a brand new song and music video that we're going to be talking about in the new music section. All of that and a bunch more in music this week. So let's talk about new music. There is no follow-ups or corrections to make, so we're jumping right into the new music. And first thing on the list is Godsmack have released a new video for their song Truth that came out on their last record, which is the last record they're putting out. This is their farewell tour that they're on. Record was called Lighting Up the Sky. The name of this song with the video is called Truth. It is a power ballad like we're back in 1987 with a Godsmack spin on it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I know a lot of people out there like to talk a lot of smack about the butt rock, if you will, which is arguably where Godsmack would be classified. I would feel more appropriate with the active rock categorization, or even better, hard rock, because that's where all of these silly extra subgenres come from. Godsmack. Sully Erna's voice is fantastic, always has been, presumably will be until the end of their career because it's ending soon. And the video, though, leaves a little bit to be desired as far as the video production goes, but that's not necessarily why we're listening or why we're watching it. We're watching it because we want to hear the song. The song's kind of trite. I'm not gonna lie, the lyrics are definitely a little bit like, you've heard it all 72 different times before. Really, the thing that shines here is Sully's voice, and it's worth it just for that. So very much a recommend. Godsmack is solid stuff. Whether or not you like the fact that they've been kind of making the same record ever since their second album, that's a whole different conversation for another day. This is a solid ballad, though. Go check it out. We also got a new track from Demon Hunter this week. The name of the song is Worlds Apart. It is a standalone single. It is not associated with an album per se. This is kind of Demon Hunter the way I remember Demon Hunter when I first found them. A pretty heavy dose of like death metal, and then there's the melodic soaring choruses to go along with it, and that's kind of where I like my Demon Hunter. They get into the new metal stuff a little bit, and definitely into the metalcore stuff quite a bit, and that's kind of the new metal version of Demon Hunter. Not a big fan. The metalcore version of Demon Hunter's also pretty good, but the death metal version of Demon Hunter is definitely where these guys shine. The only gripe I have about this track is really the mix. I feel like the vocal mix is a little unbalanced when you go from verse to chorus. The chorus is much louder as far as the lyrics go, and that just says to me it could have used another couple hours baking in the studio. But otherwise, a really solid track from the dudes in Demon Hunter. Definitely go check out Worlds Apart. Another new-ish band that's been around for a while that I've been really into for some time is Born of Osiris. They have dropped a new track this week as well. It's called A Mind Short Circuiting. Billed on all of the other news media outlets as an old school Born of Osiris track, and it's not really, though. Like, You don't have any of the technical mastery of a Tosin Abasi or a Jason Richardson. You have whoever the current guitar players are, and neither of them are up to that caliber. It's statement of fact. It's a fair song. It's not as good as Born of Osiris once was, and that's a little bit disheartening. Is it still listenable? Sure. If you are really into technical, whatever their subgenre would be, metalcore, prog metal, I wouldn't necessarily say they would quantify as deathcore. Maybe some people would put them in that. For a hot second there are plenty of people who would have called them gent. I can see the comparisons there as well, but it doesn't necessarily make sense. They're kind of in the more technical side of metalcore, maybe? I don't know. I don't do well with subgenres. Either way, they're in the middle of the pack. They are kind of the definitive mediocre sound when it comes to this kind of technical prowess. And I keep saying the word technical. This track isn't even necessarily exceptionally technical when it comes to the Born of Osiris library or any of their contemporaries. So if you're a fan, you're gonna dig it. If you like heavy music, it's listenable. If you're just getting into this style of aggressive music, this is not the place to start. That brings us to a band that is firmly into the deathcore scene, and that is Slaughter to Prevail. They have dropped a new track, presumably from their upcoming record, which we still don't have a release date or a name for, but the name of the track is called Conflict, and it's a kind of a similar situation to the Born of Osiris track we just talked about. Like, these guys used to be one of the standout bands. I would say this track is a little bit of an example of them resting on that status. Is it a good song? Yes, it's probably much better than the Born of Osiris track we were just talking about, but is it good in terms of the upper echelons of the deathcore? Is it good in terms of the previous stuff that we've gotten from Slaughter to Prevail? And if you put it through that lens, it's fairly mediocre. We don't have any of the guitar technicality that we got on the last Slaughter to Prevail record. We have lost that guitar player for the band for reasons unknown. Been replaced by the British dude who they call out in the video as, I'm not even going to say the nickname that they use because try to keep this fairly PG to PG-13, and yeah, I'm just going to say the C word a number of times trying to remember the exact way they phrase it. So either way, and it just seems like the new guitar combination, the new guitar players, combination of players, I guess I should say, is not as technically impressive as it was in previous iterations of this band. I've said a number of times after having seen them live that they play the older tracks they play to, or the older songs they play to a track, because those guitar parts apparently are just beyond the capabilities of their current guitar players. And it sucks, but it's just a statement of fact. And I still think these guys are towards the top of the pack when it comes to the deathcore subgenre, but they're kind of losing their rank now with this subpar outing. So if the rest of this record sounds like this, it's not going to be great, like I'm hoping it's going to be, because I am definitely a fan. If the rest of the record sounds like this, though, it's just going to be disappointing. So check this one out if you like the breakdowns, but you're not looking for overly technical, aggressive music. If you're getting into aggressive music for the first time, you're just dipping your toes in the water, not the place to start either. And then a more poppy band that we haven't talked about for some time, though we did do a brief kind of reaction review to 21 Pilots before. They just came out with a new song called Overcome, and the evolution of this little band is very interesting because now we're dipping our toes into a trance kind of sound. At least the first quarter to third of this song is very trance influenced. Then we get a little bit more into the obvious sound that we know we've come to love from 21 Pilots, that kind of hip hop tinged pop rock kind of feel. And it's kind of exactly what you would expect out of a new 21 Pilots song, save for that beginning bit, which kind of is enough to keep you interested to see where it's going. So recommend this song if you are into pop music and you're looking for something a little bit different, but not much. If you just like quality song crafting, give this one a listen, because there's definitely something to be learned with what they've done here, even if you don't necessarily enjoy the lyrics or the lyrical delivery. Just the orchestration is very interesting. But if you are just looking for heavy blast beats, this is probably not the track for you. Now let's get into tours and festivals, nerds. We actually have a decent sized touring section this week. Starting things off, we're talking about The Refused. It is a band that I have a very interesting past with, an interesting relationship with, as far as like the music they make and their political ideation, and how those two things do not necessarily mix very well in my head. But yeah, The Refused are playing their final festival date. The festival they're playing is in their hometown of Stockholm, and it is called the Rosendal Garden Party Festival. It's going to be alongside of the likes of Massive Attack, Turnstile, The Heavy, MIA, a bunch more. Link down in the description if you want to see the full lineup. I couldn't find tickets because it's in Sweden and I'm not. So if you're looking for tickets, you're going to have to look a little bit harder, but very interesting nonetheless. Next up, we have, speaking of anniversaries, we have Korn have announced a single date, which is a very interesting lineup. A single date, though, for the 30th anniversary of their self-titled record. That makes me feel very old. So 30th anniversary of the Korn record. It is going to be October 5th, though the record was released on the 11th. Who's gonna fault them for 6 days? October 5th this year, it's going to be at the BMO Stadium in LA. The lineup also includes, and like I said, it's a very interesting lineup. The lineup also includes Evanescence, Gojira, Scars on Broadway, Spirit Box, and Vended. So the Scars on Broadway, if you don't remember why you know that band name, it's because that's Darren Malakian's side project band that he does while he's not doing System of a Down. And then Vended is another one that you might remember. We've done a couple of reactions to them here on the channel. We've also talked about them going on tour, because the lead singer of that band is Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour's son, as well as the bass player, or maybe one of the guitar players. I can never remember who it is, but one of those is the son of Sean Clown Crahan, also from Slipknot. So these guys have a little bit of clout when it comes to who their parents are. And so very interesting, like I said, very interesting lineup, very diverse lineup, because you've got the kind of pop goth rock with Evanescence, and you've got the definitely crazy other stuff with Gojira, probably the heaviest band on this lineup, and they're third on the bill. That's very strange. Spirit Box with the kind of newer gent inspired, I don't even know how you would go with Spirit Box, but still a little bit on the lighter side of things. And then Vended just doing their own scrappy little metal thing. Just a super interesting precursor, all leading up to one of the biggest nu metal bands to have ever lived. Tickets are available. You can find a link down in the description. There is some weird situation with Citibank, where Citibank card holders are going to be doing the pre-sale for tickets. I tried to get as many links as I could, all down in the description if you're interested. If you're going to be able to make your way out to LA this October 5th, then yeah, you can go to get tickets down there. From there, we have Hailstorm and I Prevail announcing a tour together. It's going to be kicking off July 9th in Raleigh, North Carolina. It runs through August 17th in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it's going to be also a very interesting lineup. Support is coming from Hollywood Undead and Fit for a King. So Hailstorm, I Prevail, Hollywood Undead, and Fit for a King. Such very interesting tours are going on these days, and I'm kind of here for it, not gonna lie. There are tickets on sale right now. They are through Ticketmaster though, save for a very small handful of dates. I think I saw like 3 dates on this list that were not Live Nation slash Ticketmaster events. So if you're one of the lucky 3, if you're in the area for one of those lucky 3, then go for it. But otherwise, tread lightly. Then our next one is Aftershock Festival this year has been announced. It is going to be happening October 10th through the 13th in Sacramento, California. Again, Slayer still doing their reunion thing. They are one of the bands that are headlining. The other headliners for this festival, for the 4 days of this festival, we have Slipknot, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, Pantera, Five Finger Death Punch, Judas Priest, and Disturbed. So those are just the headliners. There are a number of other bands going to be playing because it seems like there's going to be a number of stages. Obviously, there's 4 days and we have that many headliners. Yeah, very, very huge show. You can find a link in the description that's going to take you to the full lineup, and then another link in the description that will take you to ticketing. That is correct. So that is what we have for tours and festivals. Though, let's move into some regular ass news for music. Our regular news section this week is relatively short, but some interesting stuff going on here. First up, we have a real quick kind of sort of update. Could have gone in the follow-ups and corrections section, I guess. The Jay Weinberg situation, formerly of Slipknot, very recently was fired from Slipknot and has now found his way into suicidal tendencies, just from one tentpole band to another, right? Some outlets are billing Suicidal Tendencies as an old school thrash band, and that is not accurate. Suicidal Tendencies are hardcore punk. So Jay Weinberg is going to be playing with hardcore legends, Suicidal Tendencies, for the foreseeable future. He's also in another band with one of the Suicidal Tendencies band members. I can't remember the name of the band, but much less significant than signing with the Suicidal Tendencies. So congratulations to Jay. He landed with his feet in a pretty decent spot. Probably not going to pull home the same kind of checks, though there are about half as many band members in Suicidal Tendencies as there are in Slipknot, so maybe the checks will be comparable. And then our only other piece of news this week is Avenged Sevenfold. So they kind of sort of are changing the way that we're going to experience live music. And this is such an interesting thing to be talking about. So they're not the first band to do this. Well, let's rephrase it. They're not the first musical act to do this. They are the first band that identifies as a heavy metal band to do this, and that's why this is significant. But they have just put out an experience, I guess is how you're going to call it. It's in association with, I know I put it in here. I know I did. Amaze VR. There we go. Hey, look at that. Notes that are good. Amaze VR signed them on and filmed a live performance of them with 3D cameras that you can only view through either the Apple Vision Pro or the Meta, whatever their goggles are called right now. You go get the Amaze VR app, and you can have access to all of the artists that have put out concert experiences through Amaze VR. You can listen to one song from each of their sets for free. And if you like what you hear, you want to see more, then you can pay them $13 for the entire set. So if you're just doing it for the Avenged Sevenfold thing, I would imagine the app itself costs money, and then you have to pay them money for the Avenged Sevenfold bit. But yeah, very interesting. And then also, if you are going to see Avenged Sevenfold for real live and not just on the goggles live, then there's going to be a unique experience for you there as well based around this. It's going to be the Mattel song from that performance. They're going to have for VIP ticket holders. As part of your VIP experience, you will be able to watch the Mattel performance on a set of goggles, presumably in a VIP lounge somewhere. The details were not exactly 100% described, because how many people are going to be doing the VIP stuff, right? So yeah, very interesting. Just the future of this kind of technology as applied to this kind of use case is so incredibly amazing, because theoretically, once we get to the point where the tech is there, you can broadcast a live performance and have just a number of these 3D cameras set throughout the performance space, and then sell access to these 3D cameras, and then and you can just take this rig with you everywhere you go and do this every night. And so you have the in-house live audience and then the online live audience, and the online live audience gets a completely different experience. Just such a cool concept. Very, very interesting. I'm super stoked to see where else this goes. Even if it's not Avenged Sevenfold, it's just some other random band. It's going to evolve. That's my 2 cents. Let's move on, shall we? All we have left in music is suggestions for music this week. Because they did just announce the show, and because it is turning 30 in a couple of months, we're going to talk about the Korn self-titled album. Kind of changed the face of music, because this one is what exposed the world to what would become nu metal. The standout tracks on this one, I honestly, the whole damn record. We've got Kill You, you've got Adidas, you've got, oh man, so much stuff on, and some of that might be on Life is Peachy, and I'm just mixing the two records in my head. But either way, the self-titled Ball Tongue is probably still one of my favorite Korn songs to this date. So yeah, great record. Great record. Stands the test of time. Produced by Ross Robinson, and I can't gush any more about it. Go check out the self-titled Korn album as your suggestion this week. Here we are, gaming and tech. We have a Dune video game that comes from the multiverse. And yeah, there's a little bit to unpack there. Also, Nintendo wins. And that's not necessarily a good thing. And then plus continuing the saga of the layoffs in the video game and tech world, there's not a whole lot to talk about, but there's a lot of depth to each of these things. So let's get into it. First up, we have some follow-ups and corrections following up on the layoff situation. The next big company to announce a significant amount of layoffs is EA. They have just announced that they're going to be laying off 5% of their workforce, which is approximately 670 people are going to be without a job once EA kind of gets through all of this. That is a significant amount of people. That puts us up to, I'm pretty sure, 8,000 people who have lost their job in the tech sector since the beginning of the year, and it just became March, nerds. This is crazy. Though I still say if you were not expecting this, then you were not paying attention, because we had a boom. We had a crazy boom during the pandemic where everybody was locked up and they couldn't do anything but interact with tech by and large. So tech obviously went crazy, and there were a lot of extra jobs to be had, especially immediately following lockdowns when they were still experiencing this influx of traffic. And now that influx of traffic is starting to balance back out to where it was pre-pandemic. So you kind of have to, all of that extra inflation, you have to get rid of some of the rib meat, if you will. So yeah, EA, the next one. Our other follow-up this week has to do with Baldur's Gate 3. The physical release is finally about to happen, and Xbox players who are looking for the physical copy, you got a kind of a double blow this week. First off, it's going to be a lot of discs. It's going to be 4 discs on the Xbox because they didn't want to cut content. So 4 discs of Baldur's Gate 3 if you are an Xbox player, compared to 2 discs on PlayStation 5 and 1 disc on PC. That's pretty significant. But then because that is effectively 4 times as much physical production as it takes to get the PC version out, the Xbox version of the physical game is going to be slightly delayed. It didn't say specifically how long of a delay to expect, but I would probably estimate at least a week. If you want to get the physical copy of Baldur's Gate 3 on your Xbox, then you're gonna be waiting a little bit longer than your contemporaries on other platforms. Yeah, so just super interesting. That's all we've got for follow-ups and corrections. Let's talk real quick about trailers, because this is one of our other big headlines, and that is the Dune Awakening game that we've talked about previously. They just released some gameplay, a trailer. There's not as much gameplay in here as they want you to think there is, but we do have gameplay. We're teasing a world that, if you're not aware, it looks like it is exactly just the same Dune that we got in either the movie or the books, because they're similar enough that they could be the same to a degree. But the video game then kind of starts to show us some things that aren't in the books and definitely aren't in the movies. So it's like, what's going on here? Apparently, the creators of this game are doing a different universe version of Dune. So there's going to be some variations from the mythology that we all know and love, because video games, and it's a difficult one to translate onto gaming experience. I will give them that. But why license the IP if you're going to change some of these things so significantly? I don't understand that. Why not just call it something else and have it be similar to Dune? I mean, I don't know. So yeah, that's the thing. Go check out the trailer though. It does look like there might be something to it. It just feels like it's a little early to say it's going to be good. It'll just be interesting, is all we can say at this stage in the game. That's all we have for trailers though. Let's talk now about some regular ass news. And this is a big one we probably should have touched on last week, but we didn't, because honestly, I wanted to see what the response was. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm gonna just stop talking so vaguely. So Nintendo has won kind of their lawsuit against the emulator company that created Yuzu. Yuzu is an emulator for the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo brought a lawsuit against them, and then also somehow vicariously Citra, who is another emulator, is also being shut down as part of this same lawsuit. So very interesting. But so again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Nintendo brought a lawsuit against a DRM lawsuit, I believe is how it was specifically filed, against the creators of Yuzu, saying that they're costing them money because the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was downloaded over 1 million times and played on their platform. And there is an interesting back and forth because previously in the courts, emulation software has been upheld as, there is a legitimate way to do that. There is a way to play emulated games that is not playing pirated games. So that's why, generally speaking, they have been upheld in courts, because it's not 100% guaranteed that there's piracy. There is a viable reason to be playing it that is not piracy. So the court says, well, because that exists, then these are legal, technically speaking. It's just how you obtain the ROM where the shady legality comes in. So, all of that being said, there have been some different situations with Yuzu. I don't know about the Citra comparison, because that honestly didn't come out until I was already kind of past this story in the notes. So if there's more to follow up on next week, we'll definitely follow up on it. But it would seem that some of the developers have helped some of their customers, I guess, to play pirated games on their emulation software. So therein lies the catch, because if that's the situation, then that's not legal. So all of that is to say that last week there was a motion filed in this court proceeding to extend the amount of time that the producers of Yuzu had to respond. And so I was hoping we would get a response, and really all we got was, Yuzu is no more. So Yuzu and Citra are both being taken down off of their respective hosting sites because they just didn't want to fight it, it would seem. Theoretically, there is a way they could have won, but it would have been probably very expensive, and probably they don't have the resources to pay for something like that, because emulation is whatever. But the reason I say that Nintendo only kind of won is because this was not after a judgment. The judge in this court did not say, Yuzu, you have to shut down and then you have to pay Nintendo X amount of dollars. No, what happened was they settled it out of court. So Yuzu is paying Nintendo $2.4 million, which presumably is way more than they actually made off of this situation. And they're taking down their software off of the internet. So you will not be able to get Yuzu directly from Yuzu, the people who created it. Again, I didn't write down the name of the company because I take amazing notes. So Nintendo wins, and it's a little bit scary because then they're also going after, oh no, Citra was Nintendo DS. That's what it was. It was a DS emulator. So, but immediately after they were taken down, new versions of them developed by other people, presumably just taking the existing version and changing a couple of lines of code or something and giving it a different name. Those got slapped up on the internet pretty much hour of. And so if you are looking to emulate your 3DS games or your Switch games, the option is still available, but it is just become a little bit more difficult. So yeah, that is our only piece of regular ass news for this episode. Let's get into our suggestions for video games. Video game suggestion this week is Metal Gear Solid, or the Metal Gear Master Collection, because it's not all Metal Gear Solid games. You have Metal Gear, Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Metal Gear Solid 3. So 5 games. That's just the base games. You also get, for Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, there's a bunch of extra DLC content, or DLC. It's not DLC because it's a little too old for that, but additional content that was released after the game was released. You have the integral stuff, you have the VR missions, etc., etc., etc. All of that is part of the Master Collection, and all of that is so incredibly much fun to play. I am currently about halfway through playing Metal Gear Solid, probably for the 25th time, but it's the first time on my Switch, so there you go. It's on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, Steam, I think, as well, and the Switch, and I chose to get it on Switch. Talk about comic books and books. Alan Moore is finally leaving comic books, and that's maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, depends on your take. Yeah, let's talk about this. No follow-ups or corrections, no trailers to speak of. We just have a couple of pieces of news and then your suggested read for the week. So let's do that. First piece of news is Alan Moore. Alan Moore has said for years and years and years that he's going to be getting out of the comic book game, and now his final book is set to be published. The final book is going to be called The Moon and Serpent. I don't know where the emphasis is supposed to be on this line, so I apologize. I'm going to try that again. The Moon and Serpent Bumper Book of Magic. Or The Moon and Serpent Bumper Book of Magic. Something like that. Yeah, Alan Moore is leaving. It will be on shelves this October. It's going to be a collection of not just comics, though. It's going to be comics and prose, similar to if you read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where there would be like a page of words, and then we'd get a couple of pages of panels, and then a page of words. That's what it sounds like we're going to be getting with this release from Alan Moore. And then he's done. He's retiring from comic books and is going to do probably some other form of writing, probably novelizations of his thoughts or collections of prose, whatever. It's Alan Moore. He's just kind of crazy and weird, and it's kind of awesome. I am a bit of an Alan Moore fan. Are you? Let's have that conversation down in the comments section, shall we? That's what we got on that one, though. The other one is a new book on Dark Horse. Dark Horse has announced they're going to be putting out a new book called Medusa. That's right, a book that focuses around the Greek mythological character of Medusa. It's going to be written and drawn by Tony Parker. Color from Tamra Bonvillain. Is twisting the original myth of Medusa into her being a sympathetic protagonist. And I'm kind of intrigued by this, which is why we're talking about it. There hasn't been a whole lot of forward motion in comic books for a while. So very interesting. Keep our eyes on it. That's kind of all we got. Let's move now into our suggestions for this week. If you don't remember, I'm going to refresh your memory. There is a very big surprise coming in the TV section, and it has to do with our suggestion for books this week, comic books and books, is Neuromancer. Neuromancer is your suggestion. The classic cyberpunk novel written by William Gibson, came out in 1984. It is one of the best books you will read in your entire life. I cannot stress that enough. If you dig science fiction, even in the slightest, if you are a fan of the cyberpunk aesthetic, this is kind of where it all sort of started. I'm not going to say that he's the originator of the subgenre. He's just the guy who perfected it. Kind of like rock and roll. The Beatles kind of created rock and roll in the modern sense, and then the Who perfected it, right? So in this situation, William Gibson is the Who, and ain't nothing wrong with that. So yes, absolutely 100%. Neuromancer is the book to read. Brings us over into TV news, episodic content. We have The godfather of Cyberpunk is finally getting his due, and I'm super stoked about it. Also, we have updates on House of the Dragon Season 2, as well as One Piece live action. So we're gonna get into all of that. Starting things off for this section, we have follow-ups and corrections. That's right, House of the Dragon Season 2 now has a premiere window. It's not a precise date just yet, but we do know it's going to be sometime in June, so pretty soon, honestly. And then we also have, speaking of Season 2s, we have One Piece live action over on Netflix. Season 2 is happening. We do have word that there is going to be a renewal for Season 2, which is pretty freaking awesome. And then continuing with this follow-ups section, we have Only Murders in the Building. Kumail Nanjiani has officially been announced to being cast for Season 4, which I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, as we talked about this previously, Season 4 should be the final season. But I could also be wrong, so don't quote me on that. Either way, Kumail Nanjiani is going to be in it, and yeah, now you are up to date on all the things we've talked about previously. So let's get into the trailers section. We do have a trailer. It's kind of the same thing we got last week, though, just a little bit more of it. It's another scene from Season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, and it still has me freaking stoked. Last week wasn't enough really to kind of whet my palate and get me as excited as this week's is. This week is a scene between Louis and, I'm going to brain fart the girl vampire's name again, and I'm sorry, but it's a conversation between them in Paris, away from Lestat, and just like the things that they changed for this series work in so many different ways. I'm super intrigued by where they're going with this, and you'll see what I'm talking about when you get into this. Go watch this trailer, clip, whatever you want to call it. It's absolutely worth your time. May 12th is when we are going to be getting the first episode of the new season. And then let's jump into regular ass news, shall we? Big one coming out the gate is William Gibson's Neuromancer is getting a series over on Apple TV Plus. It is going to be a 10-episode limited series, so presumably it's only going to be the one season to tell the story of Case, the cowboy that. The console cowboy, that's what I was trying to find. Case the console cowboy and how he's long past his years, but he gets this weird job, and he has Molly, the razor girl, assigned to him as a bodyguard. Some of these elements, if you're familiar with the first William Gibson live action adaptation, some of these elements sound a little bit familiar because they were kind of sort of Frankensteined into Johnny Mnemonic, which was Keanu Reeves and the chick from Starship Troopers, if you remember. She was the razor girl, he was the guy past his prime. A lot of these things were running very, very, very similarly, but this is the beginning of it all. This is the first book that Gibson got published, and I'm gonna just keep gushing if I don't stop. Apple TV Plus is really doing some fantastic favors. They've gotten their hands on some amazing IPs. Foundation, they did, what was the Denzel Washington movie that they just put out? And then the Napoleon one. Just some really interesting stuff going on over at Apple TV Plus. Almost makes me want to pay Apple to watch their stuff. Almost. All right, so from there, was there anything else? No, that's all we got. Graham Rowland and J.D. Dillard are going to be co-creators. Dillard is going to be directing the pilot, and Rowland is going to serve as showrunner for the entire series. Aside from that, and Gibson is going to be a creative consultant. He does not have veto power for any changes that they might be making, but he does have the ability to make suggestions when they come to issues that they want to deal with. And apparently he's done it for them a number of times already, and they have gone with his suggestions according to what he has said, so we'll see what comes of that. All right, now let's move on because I'm done gushing. The other piece that we have for regular ass news this week is Young Sheldon. Those of you who might be new to the channel, maybe you don't know, I am a bit of a fan of The Big Bang Theory. Maybe not so much the Young Sheldon series, but by extension, sure. And now we're extending it even further because Young Sheldon, which is a spin-off of The Big Bang Theory, is getting its own spin-off. No word on what the name of the spin-off or when we can expect to see it happen, but we do know what the content is going to be around. And the content of this new spin-off is going to be following Sheldon's older brother and his fiance as they raise their child and become young adults together. So straying pretty far from the things that I really loved about The Big Bang Theory, which largely was, you know, the nerdy elements. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one, but again, by extension, I'm probably going to watch a bit of it. That's all we got there, though. Let's get into suggestions this week for TV streaming. Our TV suggestion is the same as it was last week, just because I can't get enough of this show right now. The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, episode 2 is so incredible. What is the name of the guy? Matthew Jeffers, the character Nat in episode 2 is going to break your heart because he's so awesome. Not gonna give you any spoilers right now, but that character is fantastic, and just his existence, like just his backstory, is enough to just make you want to like give the guy a hug so much. It's so well done. I'm super excited to see where the rest of this season's going. That is your suggestion. Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, episode 2. Brings us into the movies section, in which Willy Wonka is getting the horror movie treatment, and kind of. Also, M. Night Shyamalan apparently is still getting work, and we got our first look at the new Tron movie. So let's talk about this stuff, shall we? Starting things off, we do have some follow-ups and corrections. The first one is Tron Ares. We got our first look from Jared Leto. It's a character inside of Tron, and that's all we really got. No real anything solid aside from the image, except for maybe the possibility that we're going to be seeing it sometime in 2025. So a little bit of an implication of a release window, though until we get official word from Disney or somebody closely associated with Disney, we're gonna kind of play this one fast and loose, right? So from there, we got some new, speaking of some first look stuff. Last week we got a first look of Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven from The Crow, his version of The Crow. Actually, that first look happened after filming last week, so I used the image in the edit, but I didn't actually talk about the image. And now we have a couple of more images of the production of the new version of The Crow. What the hell is going on? There are a few things about that first image of Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven that are sure, we can get past the fact that he has tattoos. That's a modern, edgy update, quote unquote. Like, it's unnecessary, but I understand it, because if you look at the original Eric Draven from the comics or from the first movie, he's pretty friggin' dark and brooding and edgy to begin with. We don't need the addition of those ridiculous tattoos. But again, I understand it. That's excusable. There's a thing going on with the hair, and then the makeup is just strange. It's not the Crow makeup. It's like theatrical makeup. He's just darkening his eyes. I don't understand what's going on there. And a lot of people in the community have been comparing him to Jared Leto's Joker, and I understand that as well. But then the newest stills that we got this week, we're looking at Eric in different settings and different camera angles, and a mullet? Really? Really? You're gonna give him a mullet? All right, I'm over it. We just had to talk about the mullet. I had to get that one off my chest. That is the thing that's breaking it for me. The tattoos, I can excuse. The makeup, even, all right, sure, whatever. And the little bangs, the little Caesar haircut bangs that we got, it was kind of a callback to the 90s, because like the dudes in Friends had that Roman kind of haircut thing going on where it was almost like bangs. Yes, okay, that is what it is. But then when he turns his head and you see it's business up front and party in the rear, my Eric Draven doesn't wear an ape drape. I'm sorry, that's just not how that goes. We're gonna roll on though, because we're gonna just keep talking shit if we don't. But next up we have Rebel Moon. This is follow up on the fact that we didn't previously know how long the director's cut version of the Rebel Moon movies was going to be, because Snyder hadn't really decided decided, and now he kind of has. Rebel Moon, parts 1 and 2 together. So each one is presumably going to be half of this. But parts 1 and 2 together are going to be approximately 6 hours long. So if you want to watch the entire quote-unquote saga of Rebel Moon from Zack Snyder, then it is going to be a 6-hour slog to get through. So presumably part 1 will be approximately 3 hours and part 2 will be approximately 3 hours. But before we get to that 6-hour release, we're going to have to get part 2. There is still no specific date for the 6-hour director's cut yet, but part 2 does have a release date of April 19th. So yeah, and also the director's cut version will be released together, presumably so you can watch them back to back. I don't know if you're still gonna get the breakup of the credits in the middle, but who freaking knows. From there, we have our one final follow-up is Maxine, the third in the X trilogy as produced by A24, the new masters of horror and independent movies. July 5th is the release date for Maxine, the third and final movie in this trilogy. Can't remember the director's name. I know it's not Ari Aster, who is my favorite A24 director, but yeah, in case you were wondering, Maxine has a release date, July 5th. All right, trailers. We got 2 trailers this week to talk about. First one is for a movie. Well, there's kind of a third one, but I didn't want to talk about it because it's basically just remaking a horror movie from a few years ago, but it's like the same production company and the same people involved, so I don't know how necessary that was. Anyway, we're talking about The Watchers. This is the M. Night Shyamalan situation. His trailers are always just so much better than his movies. Like, did you see Old? Like, that movie was kind of hot garbage. And the trailer made it look very freaking interesting. So kind of the same with The Lady in the Water and kind of sort of the same with The Village. And I don't know, I guess there was a little bit of redemptive value to The Village. If you really were paying attention and wanted it to be good, then it was all right. Unbreakable, I really got behind that one. Split, yeah, Split, I'm pretty sure. The multiple personality, that one was good too, but those are kind of the exceptions to the rule. Almost everything else has been, really? And then obviously there's Sixth Sense, but that one kind of works all over the place. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. It is going to be released internationally before it's released in the States, which is a first, I believe, for Shyamalan. The international release date is June 5th. The North American release date is going to be June 7th, so 2 days later. Starring Dakota Fanning, for reasons, because she doesn't know any better, I guess. Then the other trailer, go check it out and you see what I'm talking about. It's intriguing, but I really think all of the intrigue is going to be what we get in the trailer. The other trailer we have to talk about is the new Garfield movie. Chris Pratt doing the voice of Garfield. I can kind of get behind it. I'm not gonna lie. The trailer's it's kind of like, yeah, I'm probably gonna see this one. I don't know why. It just has me, I guess. So go check out that trailer. That's what we got for trailers. Let's talk next about some regular ass news. Starting things off, we have Superman Legacy. James Gunn has officially cast Wendell Pierce as the role of Perry White, following Lawrence Fishburne from the Snyder cut version of the character. This is not the first, nor will it be the last time this character has been race swapped from his original iteration, but it's kind of, he's a tertiary character, so there's really no significance one way or the other. He could be any color in the rainbow, and it's kind of like, yeah, okay, it's just Perry White. He is Clark and Lois's boss, sure, but beyond that, there's no significance to whether or not he's white or black or brown or yellow or pink or whatever. So sure, have fun with it. Next is, man, this is the very interesting piece. We didn't talk about what this is based on necessarily, but let's get into it. So there is a new horror movie in the works, and it's going to be called The Unknown. Why is this significant, and why am I speaking so cryptically about it? Well, it's kind of based on Willy Wonka. And I say kind of because there was an issue over in Scotland, I think it was a little over a week ago, might have been about 2+ weeks ago, where a nice young Scottish man wanted to do something cool for kids and recreate Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, which would be nice, sure. What they actually got was a sad shadow of what might have been, and it was just kind of a little pathetic. I'm sure there are many more places you can go that will be able to illustrate better why this is sad and pathetic. Parents paid money to take their kids to this thing, and it was very much a letdown. Except if they were trying to scare the bejesus out of their children, in which case they probably did a fair job, because an addition was made to the world of Willy Wonka inside of this sad Willy Wonka experience, and that addition is known as The Unknown. The Unknown is supposedly supposed to be a rival chocolatier that was there to try and frighten children, apparently. The Unknown is a person wearing a black cloak and a silver kabuki mask and a crazy black wig. That is what is the basis of this new horror movie called The Unknown. So it's unclear to me if this production company is going to be treating this like a dark Willy Wonka, in that they're going to live inside of the world of Willy Wonka effectively, or if the horror movie premise is going to be parents taking their children to what should be a children's event, and then this unknown person comes and is the slasher or something along those lines. That part has not been made explicitly clear in any of the bits that I have read revolving around this. I'm definitely going to be keeping tabs on this, so if that does get ironed out before the first trailer drops, then we'll talk about it. Otherwise, the Scottish film studio Caledonia, I think is how you say that word, Caledonia Pictures rather, is trying to rush the production of this movie in order to get it released this year. There was no word on when this year they were aiming to get this released, though presumably you're gonna want to do something like this in Halloween time, so maybe October. November seems to be a fair time to do horror movies as well, so probably sometime in that rough area is when we'll be seeing this. That is what we've got for regular ass news though, nerds. Let's talk about our movie suggestion this week. And no surprise, we're talking about Dune 2 once again. Just, if you can see it in IMAX, do that for yourself, because while it is a fantastic movie and while you will appreciate it on any size screen, the biggest screen possible is going to be the best experience possible. This movie, honestly, there's a reason why it's already on to people's top 100 movies of all freaking time list, because it is as good as the first Dune movie was, the second one is that much better. Denis Villeneuve is going down in the history books as one of the greatest film auteurs of all time because of these two movies together. So I cannot tell you enough. If you have not seen this movie, you absolutely should. I know people have issues with Zendaya and probably Florence Pugh and maybe somebody else who's been cast in this movie. Put all of that nonsense aside. Go see this movie. It is amazing. That is your movie suggestion for the week, Dune 2. Today's episode is sponsored by Dubby. Real quick, I've been drinking this finally for the last week now, replacing my regular energy drink intake with a Dubby drink, and it is doing the job actually rather swimmingly. So I'm totally behind this sponsorship. I really dig it. The flavor that I am drinking currently is the Push and Punch. It is a fruit punch lemon lime combination flavor. Tastes like if you were to take the Kool-Aid that you drank as a kid and then throw a little bit of vitamin C flavoring, the lemon lime kind of Spritey kind of flavor. That's exactly the flavor that you're expecting is this drink right here. So a couple of things to note about going with Dubby instead of, say, getting your drinks from the grocery store or from the convenience store. I know a lot of people who drink energy drinks regularly just stop at 7-Eleven real quick and grab a Monster or whatever. This is going to do you actually a little bit better in a number of ways. First up, it's only about $1.20 per serving, so this lovely shaker bottle that I got is actually 2 servings, so you're looking at about 240 roughly per shaker bottle, which will last me all day. That's around 300 milligrams of caffeine, which is plenty to get you through. I mean, to each their own, I suppose, but 300 milligrams is a good amount of caffeine. The caffeine is better than other energy drinks, the way they source their caffeine, because it is from an actual source. It is not synthesized caffeine. It is sourced from coffee fruit. And in other energy drinks that I've had that do source also from coffee fruit, there's usually a flavor of coffee kind of sitting underneath everything. Not the case with the Dubby stuff. And if you are one of those who is opposed to the energy drinks, Dubby's got you covered there too. They have a hydro line of drinks that have no caffeine. They're just for hydration, and they're still really tasty from what I've heard. I have yet to taste them myself, but as this sponsorship continues, we will be moving our way through their entire line of drinks. And yeah, so it's cheaper if you go per serving with the discount. That's that $1.20 is only if you use the discount Generally Nerdy at checkout. You can follow the link down in the description. It's cheaper than even if you go to the dollar store and get one of the drinks that they sometimes have at a dollar store. I know right now they have Prime, and very frequently they have Bang at the dollar store. We got more caffeine than Prime and still cheaper than the Bang. It's approximately the same amount of caffeine. Again, if you're doing the whole shaker bottle, you're getting the same amount of caffeine, but you also are getting the nootropics in here. There's a lot more to it than just the insane amounts of caffeine that come in a Bang. You're getting similar levels of caffeine, but also things that are going to help your brain function, your blood circulation, so on and so forth. So that is why I have gone with a Dubby sponsorship. I really dig these guys. You should too. Once again, link in the description. Generally Nerdy is the code at checkout for you to get 10% off on your next energy drink purchase. So bottoms up, nerds. Yeah. We're into the rumor mill, baby. We have a new Henry Cavill Marvel rumor to talk about, more ideas on who he might be playing, plus the Snyderverse rears its ugly head once again, but for a different reason this time, and the Mandalorian video game, we have confirmation around the rumors that we talked about previously there. So let's get into that and all of the rest of it. Starting things off, we have confirmations and refutations. We have 2, and I'm not happy about the first one. The first one is Mandalorian. The game actually does seem to have been cut from the EA situation because the layoffs are happening, and the announcement around the layoffs is that they're going to continue working on IPs that they are already in the middle of, but they are not going to be starting anything new. So we're going to get the rest of the Cal Kestis storyline in the Jedi Survivor game franchise, but it seems like they're dropping their relationship with Lucasfilm, and they're not going to be making any new Star Wars games, possibly because of the new Lucasfilm contract with Epic Gaming, rather. So, or Epic Games. So yeah, that really sucks, and I'm not happy about it, but maybe it will still continue on in a different iteration over with a different producer. Who knows? And then our other confirmation this week has to do with the Deadpool movie. Maybe I should have put this one in the headlines, but Deadpool movie confirmation. We now know exactly who Emma Corrin will be playing in the new Deadpool movie. She will, in fact, be playing the villain, and that villain will, in fact, be Cassandra Nova, the sister of Professor X. It was officially announced kind of under the radar because casting, there was some sort of like legal filing that they had to make with the production, and that listed character and cast member. So yeah, Cassandra Nova is going to be the villain of the Deadpool movie, and I'm super duper intrigued by that. Now let's move into new sources for old rumors. Old rumor being Snyderverse getting sold off from Warner Brothers. This new rumor says, yeah, no, this is definitely not a dead rumor by any means, but new rumor says that, and I'm pretty sure I didn't actually see the quotes myself, so I could just be getting tertiary information, but pretty sure this is actually being fed into by Warner Brothers and Netflix themselves. Whatever am I talking about? Well, it seems that Warner Brothers has talked about licensing their IPs, which we've talked about in the news. That's not exactly the new bit, but the other part of that is Netflix has expressed an interest in taking all of the Snyderverse IPs. So all of the Snyder DC movies are presumably very potentially going to be headed over to Netflix, according to this rumor. And it seems a bit stronger now, but there's a caveat here that I think a lot of people are missing, and that's they're going to be licensing the IPs. They're not going to be purchasing the IPs. So the money is still going to be going to Warner Brothers in the end. It's just that Netflix is going to be licensing the ability to show these films on their platform. Because as we've talked previously, this is the new future of streaming. It's two-tier. First off, there's going to be a lot more ad-supported tiers for all of the streaming services. So you're going to get it for cheaper or for free. And they're going to start licensing exclusive IPs or once exclusive IPs to other streamers in order to get more money from the thing, right? So after it's kind of played out on their service, let's take specifically the Snyder movies as an example. Everyone who potentially was going to watch any of the Zack Snyder produced or directed or whatever DC movies has probably already watched them that has a Warner Brothers Max account, right? So if they license out that IP over to Netflix, say, then everyone who doesn't have a Max account but does have a Netflix account can now watch those Snyder movies, and then Warner Brothers gets a little bit of money, Netflix gets a little bit of money, and everybody's happy, hopefully. So yeah, this seems very likely at this point because Netflix is having such a good run with Zack Snyder, and who can blame them? All right, so that's all we have for new sources on old rumors. Let's talk about some new rumors, shall we? First up for new rumors is that Henry Cavill piece that we talked about at the beginning. Henry Cavill, the new rumor here is that the conversations with Marvel and the presumable contract that was signed with Marvel is so that he will be playing Spider-Man UK, which is very interesting. There's some stuff going on here that seems to imply this is possible. We're going to get to all of that. So Spider-Man UK, the first piece of that is the first thing that fans wanted Henry Cavill to be playing was Captain Britain, right? Well, Spider-Man UK is one part Spider-Man, one part Captain Britain. So yes, and he's from Universe 833, which is also significant because if you'll remember, that's the universe that Mysterio claimed to be from in the Far From Home movie. So there's some stuff kind of lining up here. However, I think a lot of it is coincidental. I really have no full great explanation as to why I think it's coincidental, because there hasn't been a whole lot of doubt cast on this, but I think it's because this is a little too good to be true. Maybe that's why I'm feeling that, but yeah, I'm putting about 40%. Like there is a decent amount there to go on. I just really feel like it's super coincidental. So 40% likely that we are going to see Henry Cavill playing Spider-Man UK. Next up has to do with Wolverine. Post-Deadpool, Hugh Jackman has reportedly said that he will do at least one more movie, though I did see one of the rumor mongers talking about this, said that it was for 2 more movies. At least one of which, though, being the Secret Wars movie. And that Secret Wars movie, Hugh Jackman has laid out a very specific stipulation, and that stipulation, in order to get Hugh Jackman in, according to rumor, is that he has to be able to work with Robert Downey Jr. and Tobey Maguire. He wants to work with both of those actors in their respective Marvel roles in order to sign on to do the project. So Yeah, I mean, there's a bit there as well. We will never be able to know if that was a stipulation laid out in front of Marvel by Hugh Jackman. We will, though, be able to gauge whether or not it actually happens that he's going to be on screen with them. So we're going to put this one a little bit higher than halfway, because there's already a bunch of rumors circling the fact that Tobey Maguire is going to be coming back to the MCU to some degree. How that is, we got a couple other rumors we're going to be addressing here in a moment. The one big hang up on this is Robert Downey Jr. So we're going to say about 60% likely we will see Hugh Jackman, Tobey Maguire, and Robert Downey Jr. in Secret Wars together. Most likely, and this is speculative, most likely though, Hugh Jackman, Tobey Maguire in Secret Wars, maybe not Robert Downey Jr. 60% there, so let's move right along. Kang the Conqueror, staying with the DC side. Kang the Conqueror, we now have a rumored replacement actor for Jonathan Majors. Coleman Domingo is now rumored to be replacing Jonathan Majors in the role of Kang the Conqueror. You might remember Coleman because he was in the Candyman reboot. I almost said Sandman. He was in the Candyman reboot. He also directed a few episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. So he's kind of got some pretty heavy-duty nerd cred there. That's pretty awesome. Next up, we have, all right, let's talk about these Spider-Man rumors. We have kind of sort of 3 different Spider-Man rumors. One of them's a little bit separate, but it's related. So we'll talk about the first 2 and give percentages for those first. The first 2 are Sony is supposedly starting to get early pre-production done for Spider-Man 4, the 4th iteration featuring Tom Holland as the main Peter Parker Spider-Man. And there is a bit of a hang-up between Sony and Marvel, according to rumor, and that is Sony wants to include all 3 of our cinema Spider-Men in this movie, that being Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield alongside Tom Holland, much like we got in the last Spider-Man movie. And Marvel does not want to do that because they are, again, according to rumor, are trying to pare down their multiverse and keep it in a more succinct, singular universe. But if they do that, then you can't also have a multiverse for the Spider-Man stuff, right? So that is the first rumor. The second rumor here is that by the end of the 4th Spider-Man movie, according to different source, but also a couple of other similar sources. By the end of Spider-Man 4, we will see Tom Holland's Spider-Man have access to or have come in contact with the Venom symbiote to some degree at the end of the movie. So let's get into percentages for these 2 rumors. First off, 30% likely that we are going to see all 3 Spider-Men in live action. Actually, no, there was another part of this right there. There's another side of the other side of that is Sony's also going to be putting those 3 actors in the next animated movie, the continuation of the Spider-Verse animated movie series. And that seems much more likely. So 30% that we'll see all 3 of them on screen together, and then probably about 75% that we're going to hear all 3 of them in the animated movie together. That's where we're going with that. And then as for the Venom symbiote with the Tom Holland Spider-Man, that's also a 75% chance. I think it's about freaking time that they do this. I think that we're to the point with Tom Holland as a physical person that he needs to evolve beyond playing this kid version, because he's in his mid-20s at this point, mid to late 20s at this point. So yeah, I think that's a logical evolution. I think Feige would sign off on that. And then the related rumor here is Venom 3. Reportedly, Tom Hardy is going to be falling into the multiverse once again as far as Marvel is concerned. He's going to be leaving his universe, the Venom universe, ostensibly, the Sony universe, probably more appropriately. He's going to be leaving there and going into the multiverse looking for the 616 version of Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland. And this seems a little far-fetched. This seems just a little bit out of reach. There is some stuff that is playing into this, not the least of which being the most recent production still that we got from Tom Hardy has him in the same outfit as at the end of the last movie, the last Spider-Man movie, where we got the crossover in the Stinger post-credit scene. So that's playing into it. Plus, there have been other rumors we've talked about that are similar in nature to this. So it's kind of enough on both sides that we're going to split the difference and go 50% likely that we will see Tom Hardy enter the MCU multiverse at the end of his Venom 3 movie. And then our next rumor has to do with some gaming stuff. Let's talk about Ghost of Tsushima 2. Reportedly, we are going to get a proper announcement that Ghost of Tsushima 2 is actually going into production at a PlayStation showcase come May or June, sometime around there. Video game rumors, I have some pretty good sources there, so very rarely are they wrong. And I think with all of the hype around this game still to a certain degree, the first game, it would be unwise for them to let that die. So yeah, 80% likely that we will be hearing about Ghost of Tsushima 2 sometime around about May or June. So that is everything we have for regular ass rumors. Let's get into some speculation around these rumors. Most importantly is we're going to get into the speculation around Spider-Man. So I kind of said it a moment ago. I think that there is going to be, there's every reason in the book why they would be giving the Venom symbiote to Tom Holland Spider-Man. However, I think there is going to be a compromise when it comes to live action additional Spider people. And that compromise, at least for now, and when we start adding like Gwen Stacy, the Ghost Spider and all that stuff, there's going to be another compromise made down the road. But right now, being as Madam Web did so poorly, Marvel kind of has all of the chips on their table. So my speculation is we will see one of those other Spider-Men in the next Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. My guess would be Tobey Maguire. I don't think Andrew Garfield is as gung-ho to play the character again. This is all kind of based on rumors, so it's very, very speculative, but it sounds like Tobey Maguire is a lot more excited for the future of his version of Peter Parker. So yeah, I think that's going to be the compromise because Tobey really wants to do it and he doesn't have to be convinced, whereas Andrew Garfield still kind of has to be convinced to come back. The compromise is going to be, and whether or not we hear the three of them, because that's theoretically a day, not even a full day's worth of work in a vocal booth. That's probably an easier sell to somebody like Andrew Garfield, who doesn't really know if he wants to come back to this character. So will we hear all three of them? That seems quite a bit more likely. Will we see all three of them? Very unlikely. I think Sony's going to have to cede a little bit of ground to Marvel and not push this one too hard in order for it to happen. So yeah, that is what we're speculating on for this episode, nerds. And that actually brings us to the end of the rumor mill and into the housekeeping section.
Housekeeping, you want to?
For those of you paying attention, playing the home game, we were potentially going to be doing a live episode this week. Didn't happen, obviously. Hi, we're pre-recorded. So next week now is very potentially going to be a live episode so that I have much less editing to do. Very much depends on a lot of things outside of my control, whether or not it actually happens that way. One of those things being the weather. So there's that. Yeah, so very possibly next week's episode could be a live episode. So if you want to join in, follow on the socials so that you know and you hear when I make the announcement that it's going to be happening. Very likely will be Tuesday night, probably round about 9 o'clock Mountain Time. And it's going to be relatively short if that's the case. It'll be probably a half hour to an hour tops. And then there will be very little as far as the extra edits go throughout the week on the Clips channel. So that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes here. Tax season is happening as well, so I got to find a way to find a spot in my schedule to slot that in so that I can potentially use that tax return money to get a couple of other things in motion, which I'm not really going to talk about at the moment because, I don't know, it's a little bit too much pressure. Either way, I think that's what we got for housekeeping. I think that's where we end the episode today, nerds. So don't forget, if you want to do the thing, leave the comments down there and we can have this back and forth conversation, because I do have the shout out show over on the other channel where we get deeper into the community conversations. That is an option. Or if, I just didn't catch something and you did, then comment section is a great place to do that. Or live, when we're going through the news live, that's the best place to do that because it's a direct interaction.